The research vessel Phoenix drifted silently through the Theta Reticuli system, its sensors probing the darkness for signs of the signal that had brought them 11 light-years from Earth. On the bridge, Commander David Torres watched the main display with tired eyes, trying to ignore the growing tension in his shoulders. They'd been tracking the signal for 3 weeks now, and Earth wanted results. "Signal strength increasing," reported Lieutenant James Wong from his station. "Whatever's broadcasting, we're getting closer." Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from her workstation, where strings of alien mathematical sequences scrolled endlessly across her screens. The xenolinguist had barely slept in days, driven by the thrill of potential first contact. The patterns becoming clearer too. "It's definitely artificial, Commander. No natural phenomenon could produce this level of complexity." Torres nodded, studying the sensor data. The Phoenix was humanity's most advanced deep space vessel, but out here, 11 light-years from home, every decision carried the weight of species-level consequences. "How confident are you about the mathematical translation, Doctor?" Sarah's fingers danced across her console, bringing up a new set of calculations. "The base mathematics are universal, prime numbers, geometric sequences. But there's something else embedded in the signal. Something." She frowned. "Almost familiar." "Familiar how?" Torres moved to her station, studying the scrolling sequences, like it was designed for us to find. "The mathematical progression. It's not just showing intelligence, it's showing an understanding of how human mathematics developed. As if whoever created this signal studied our scientific history." Before Torres could respond, Wong's console erupted in alerts. "Commander, signal strength just spiked. I'm getting massive energy readings ahead." The main display shifted, showing a patch of seemingly empty space about 50,000 kilometers ahead. But the sensor overlay told a different story. Something massive was there, hidden behind some kind of advanced cloaking technology. "Full stop," Torres ordered. "Deploy sensor buoys. I want every piece of data we can get before we move closer." The Phoenix's engines fired briefly, bringing the ship to a relative halt as it launched a network of automated sensor platforms. The bridge crew worked in focused silence, years of training kicking in despite the historic nature of the moment. "Sir," Sarah's voice was tight with excitement. "I'm getting clear transmission patterns now. It's a language key. They're trying to teach us how to communicate." Torres felt a mix of pride and apprehension. This was what they'd come for. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. Everything would change after this moment. "Begin broadcast of the first contact package. Standard protocols." The Phoenix began transmitting the carefully crafted message that humanity had spent decades preparing. A combination of mathematical principles, scientific knowledge, and cultural information designed to demonstrate both intelligence and peaceful intentions. The response came almost immediately. The patch of empty space ahead shimmered, and Torres felt his breath catch as a ship materialized. It was beautiful, a crystalline structure that seemed to flow like liquid metal, easily 4 times the size of the Phoenix. Its surface rippled with patterns of light that matched the mathematical sequences they'd been studying. "My God," Sarah whispered. "They're not just broadcasting math. Their ship's structure itself is an expression of mathematical principles. Their entire technology seems to be built around pure mathematical concepts." More alerts sounded. "Sir," Wong's voice cracked with urgency. "Multiple new contacts. They're appearing all around us." The main display showed 5 more ships materializing in a perfect pentagonal formation around the Phoenix. Each one was identical to the first, their surfaces flowing with the same hypnotic patterns. "Are they surrounding us or escorting us?" Torres wondered aloud, fighting to keep his voice calm for the crew. Sarah's console chimed. "Commander, we're receiving a new transmission. It's different, more complex. Give me a moment to process it through the translation matrix." The bridge fell silent as Sarah worked, the only sound the soft hum of equipment and the occasional alert from the sensor network. Torres studied the alien ships, noting how their formation kept the Phoenix perfectly centered. Whether that was meant as honor or threat remained to be seen. "I've got it," Sarah announced, her voice trembling slightly. "Sir, you need to see this." Torres moved to her station, reading the translated text. His blood ran cold. The message was simple. "You have been judged and found dangerous. Your potential cannot be allowed to develop. This is mercy." "Defensive systems," Torres shouted, but it was too late. The alien ship's beautiful mathematical patterns shifted, transforming into weapon configurations that humanity's greatest minds hadn't even theorized possible. "Get a message to Earth," Torres ordered as the first energy wave hit the Phoenix. "Everything we've learned. They need to know." Sarah's fingers flew across her console, compressing 3 weeks of signal analysis and first contact data into a tight beam transmission. Message away. The second energy wave hit, and Torres watched in horror as the Phoenix's advanced hull plating simply ceased to exist at the atomic level. Warning sirens blared as systems failed across the ship. "They're not just attacking us," Sarah said, still analyzing data even as their ship died around them. "This signal, it was a test. They're an ancient species, Commander. They hunt down young civilizations, evaluate them, and eliminate those they think might one day compete with them." Torres grabbed the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the Commander. Emergency Protocol Omega. Dump all data to quantum storage and prepare for emergency transmission." The bridge crew worked with desperate efficiency, knowing these would be their final actions. The alien ships, the Vorax, according to the fragments of language Sarah had decoded, continued their methodical deconstruction of the Phoenix. "Data dump complete," Wong reported. "Quantum storage at maximum capacity." Torres took a deep breath. "Send it. All channels, all frequencies. Let's give Earth everything they need to survive this." The Phoenix's quantum transmitter engaged, broadcasting its invaluable cargo of data and warnings back toward Earth. The Vorax ships reacted instantly, their weapons converging to stop the transmission. But they were too late. The message was away, carrying with it humanity's first, and perhaps most important, lesson about their place in the galaxy. As the Phoenix's hull finally gave way to the Vorax weapons, Commander Torres looked at his crew. The best humanity had to offer, who had come so far to make peaceful contact with alien life. "It's been an honor," he said quietly. Sarah Chen, still working at her station until the very end, made one final entry into her log. "They think they're ending us, but they don't understand humanity. This isn't our end. It's just the beginning." The Phoenix died in silence, 11 light years from Earth, but its message, carrying the truth about humanity's first contact and the nature of their ancient enemy, raced through space toward home. Humanity had reached for the stars with hope and curiosity. They would return with something else entirely. 20 years after the destruction of the Phoenix, Dr. Emily Chen sat in her lab at the Lunar Defense Institute, studying the same mathematical sequences that her mother had died trying to understand. The holographic display filled the room with ethereal patterns of light, each one a piece of the puzzle that had cost humanity its innocence about the cosmos. "Running simulation sequence 42,715, announced the lab's eye assistant. The mathematical patterns shifted, revealing new layers of complexity in the Vorax weapons signatures that the Phoenix had recorded in its final moments. Emily rubbed her tired eyes, trying to focus. She'd grown up studying these patterns, driven by both personal loss and humanity's desperate need to understand their enemy. The Vorax would return. That much was certain. The only question was whether humanity would be ready when they did. "Dr. Chen," a quiet voice interrupted her thoughts. "The Defense Council is ready for your briefing." Emily nodded to her assistant, Dr. Raj Patel, a quantum physicist who had dedicated his career to understanding the Vorax's mathematical weapon systems. Together, they had made breakthroughs that would have seemed like magic 2 decades ago. The main display switched to show the Defense Council chamber in Geneva. 12 faces looked back at her, representing the united human response to the Vorax threat. After the Phoenix's final message, old national rivalries had faded in the face of species survival. Dr. Chen, Admiral Helena Santos began. Your monthly report indicated a significant breakthrough. Please proceed. Emily took a deep breath. 20 years ago, the Phoenix transmitted more than just a warning. Hidden in the quantum data stream was a complete sensor log of the Vorax weapons in action. My mother, she paused, steadying her voice. Dr. Sarah Chen encrypted the data in a way that would take years to fully decode. She knew we'd need time to understand what we were seeing. The holographic display shifted, showing the complex mathematical patterns that had become Emily's life's work. The Vorax don't just use mathematics to communicate. They use it to manipulate reality itself. Their weapons don't destroy matter. They rewrite the mathematical principles that govern its existence. That's why no conventional defense could have saved the Phoenix, Raj added. But Dr. Chen has discovered something revolutionary in the patterns. Emily nodded, bringing up a new simulation. The Vorax's mathematical attacks require perfect symmetry and absolute precision. But we found a flaw in their approach. They rely on predictable, deterministic patterns, and that's where human creativity becomes their weakness. The display showed a new set of equations, human mathematics merged with chaos theory and quantum uncertainty. We can't match their level of mathematical control, but we can introduce controlled uncertainty into their patterns. Think of it like adding random harmonics to a perfect musical note until it becomes noise. Admiral Santos leaned forward. Are you saying we can defend against their weapons? Better than that, Emily replied. We can turn their own mathematical principles against them. Project Legacy isn't just a defense system. It's a whole new way of approaching physics itself. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had spent 20 years preparing for the Vorax's return, developing technologies and strategies that merged human intuition with artificial intelligence. Project Legacy was the culmination of that work. How long until the system is ready? Asked General Chen Wei, the Chinese representative who had lost his brother on the Phoenix. The core principles are proven, Emily answered. We've successfully tested the disruption fields against simulated Vorax weapons. But there's a catch. The system requires human operators. The unpredictability that makes it effective can only come from human intuition merged with AI support. Which means we need pilots. Admiral Santos concluded. How many? Thousands, Raj replied. Each legacy unit needs a human mind to generate the chaos patterns that disrupt Vorax mathematics. We'll need a whole new kind of space force. The council members exchanged looks. They had all known this day was coming. For 20 years, humanity had rebuilt itself around a single purpose, survival against an enemy that saw them as little more than mathematical variables to be eliminated. There's something else, Emily added, her voice quiet but firm. In studying these patterns, we've learned more about the Vorax themselves. They're ancient, possibly one of the first species to achieve interstellar travel. But their reliance on perfect mathematical principles has become their prison. They can't adapt or evolve beyond their fundamental patterns. That's why they destroy younger species, because they fear our potential to surpass their limitations. The holographic display showed a final simulation. A legacy unit in action, its chaos-infused fields disrupting the perfect symmetry of Vorax weapons. We don't need to become like them to defeat them. We just need to be ourselves, unpredictable, creative, and willing to embrace chaos as well as order. Admiral Santos stood, her decision made. Begin mass production of the legacy units. Start recruiting pilots immediately. If the Vorax think humanity is a mathematical problem to be solved, let's show them just how wrong their calculations can be. As the council session ended, Emily stayed in her lab, studying the patterns that had taken her mother's life. The Phoenix's sacrifice had given humanity a chance, but now they had to prove they deserved it. She touched the screen where her mother's final log entry was still preserved. They don't understand humanity. This isn't our end. It's just the beginning. 20 years later, those words had become humanity's promise to the stars. The Vorax had tried to eliminate a potential rival, but instead, they had created something unprecedented, a species that had learned to weaponize its own unpredictability. The next time the Vorax ships appeared in human space, they would find something very different from the peaceful research vessel they had so easily destroyed. They would find a humanity that had spent 20 years preparing to break their perfect mathematical universe. And it all began with the last message from a dying ship, 11 light-years from home. The alert came at 300 Earth Standard Time. Deep space sensors detected the quantum distortions that Dr. Chen had warned them about, the mathematical ripples that preceded Vorax ships dropping out of their version of faster-than-light travel. They were arriving at the edge of the Sol system, exactly where humanity had prepared to meet them. Captain Maria Santos, daughter of Admiral Helena Santos, sat in the cockpit of her legacy unit, watching the tactical display as hundreds of other pilots took their positions. The sleek craft around her bore little resemblance to traditional spacecraft. Its hull was covered in shifting patterns of light that mimicked Vorax mathematics, while introducing subtle elements of chaos, order and disorder working in perfect harmony. All legacy squadrons, this is Control. Dr. Emily Chen's voice came through clear and calm. Remember your training. Don't try to match their patterns exactly. Trust your instincts. Let the AI support systems adapt to your chaos signatures. And stay unpredictable. Maria checked her neural link status. The direct interface between her mind and the legacy unit's AI was operating at optimal levels. Around her, the quantum disruption field hummed with potential energy, ready to transform her human unpredictability into a weapon against Vorax mathematical precision. First wave detected, announced Control. 6 Vorax capital ships, identical configuration to the Phoenix encounter. They're maintaining classic pentagonal formation, with one command vessel. Maria felt a chill. The Vorax hadn't changed their tactics in 20 years. Why should they? Their mathematical weapons had worked perfectly for millennia. They had no reason to expect anything different from the primitive species they had marked for elimination. All units, execute Operation Butterfly, ordered Admiral Santos from the Lunar Command Center. The name was deliberately chosen. In chaos theory, a butterfly's wings could cause a hurricane. Today, humanity would show the Vorax just how dangerous chaos could be. The legacy squadrons moved into their starting positions, but not in the rigid formations the Vorax would expect. Each pilot's position was determined by a combination of tactical AI suggestions and human intuition, creating patterns that looked like random noise to Vorax sensors. The alien ships drew closer, their crystalline hulls flowing with the same beautiful and deadly mathematical sequences that had destroyed the Phoenix. Energy began building in their weapon systems, preparing to rewrite the laws of physics around their targets. They're scanning us, Emily reported, getting the same signature as the Phoenix encounter. They're running their standard evaluation protocols. Maria watched the Vorax ships through her neural link, seeing both the physical vessels and the mathematical patterns that define them. 20 years of training had taught her to recognize their fundamental sequences, the building blocks of their reality-altering weapons. Here it comes, Emily warned. First weapon signature detected. All units, activate disruption fields. The space around the legacy squadrons erupted with quantum interference as hundreds of human pilots simultaneously introduced controlled chaos into the Vorax's perfect mathematical universe. Maria felt the AI supporting her natural instincts, translating her neural patterns into disruption waves that rippled out toward the alien ships. The Vorax fired. Their weapon beams lanced out, carrying equations that should have unraveled matter at the atomic level. But they met something unprecedented, mathematics infused with human chaos, patterns that shifted and evolved in ways their rigid systems couldn't predict. Disruption field holding. Emily's voice was triumphant. All units, execute attack pattern Delta. The legacy squadrons broke formation, each pilot following their own intuitive path while their AI systems coordinated the larger strategy. Maria drove her unit straight toward the nearest Vorax ship, her disruption field leaving a wake of mathematical chaos that confused the alien targeting systems. The Vorax responded with increasing power, trying to overwhelm the human defenses with pure mathematical force. But each attack met the same defense: human unpredictability supported by artificial intelligence, creating interference patterns that turned their perfect equations into useless noise. "They're trying to adapt," Emily reported, studying the data streams. "But they can't. Their whole system is built on predictable patterns. They literally can't comprehend what we're doing." Maria watched through her neural link as the Vorax ships began to show signs of confusion. Their perfect formation wavered as their standard tactical protocols failed to account for the chaos humans were introducing into their mathematical universe. "All units, initiate Phase 2, Admiral Santos ordered. Show them what else we've learned in 20 years. Maria and her fellow pilots activated their legacy unit's offensive systems. If defense relied on disrupting Vorax mathematics, attack involved injecting human equations into their ship's operating patterns. It was like introducing a virus into a perfect crystal structure, creating fractures that spread through their mathematical foundation. The first Vorax ship's crystalline hull began to lose coherence as its fundamental patterns were corrupted by human chaos mathematics. The beautiful flowing sequences that defined its structure became discordant, like a perfect symphony, descending into noise. "Multiple Vorax ships showing critical pattern degradation," Emily reported. "Their mathematical cohesion is failing. They can't maintain their structure." The alien ships began to retreat, their perfect formation completely broken. For the first time in their ancient history, the Vorax faced an enemy that could not only defend against their weapons, but turn their own mathematical principles against them. "Let them go," Admiral Santos ordered as the Vorax ships disappeared into quantum space. "They need to report back to their leadership. They need to understand that humanity isn't just another primitive species to be eliminated." As the battle ended, Maria sat in her legacy unit's cockpit, watching the quantum distortions fade. Humanity had won its first engagement with the Vorax, using creativity and chaos to defeat an enemy that had relied on perfect mathematical order for millions of years. "The Phoenix died to give us this chance." Emily's voice was soft on the command channel. "Today, we proved their sacrifice wasn't in vain." But Maria knew this was just the beginning. The Vorax would return, probably with new strategies and greater numbers. Yet something fundamental had changed in the universe today. An ancient species that had dominated space through mathematical perfection had discovered that their equations couldn't account for everything. They had discovered that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in matching their perfection, but in embracing imperfection, uncertainty, and chaos. The real war was just beginning, and its outcome would depend not on who had the most powerful weapons, but on who could adapt to change. The legacy squadrons were formed for the return to base, each pilot following their own path while maintaining the larger formation. Like humanity itself, individuals working together, bringing order and chaos into balance, ready to defend their right to exist in a universe that was far more complex than pure mathematics could describe. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, where ice and rock danced in eternal darkness, humanity prepared for the Vorax's inevitable return. The first battle had been won, but Dr. Emily Chen knew better than to celebrate too early. She stood in the newly constructed Quantum Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the latest sensor data from across the solar system. "They're adapting faster than we expected," she told the assembled military leadership. "The latest probe data shows they're modifying their mathematical patterns, trying to account for our chaos factors." Admiral Santos studied the complex equations floating in the air. "Can they overcome our disruption fields?" "No," Emily smiled slightly. "That's the beautiful part. Every time they try to create a pattern that accounts for chaos, they just make their systems more complex, and therefore more vulnerable to disruption. They're trying to solve chaos with order, but that's mathematically impossible. But the Vorax weren't staying idle. Reports from deep space probes showed massive fleet movements, hundreds of ships gathering for what would clearly be a major assault. The ancient species had never faced a serious challenge before, and they were responding with overwhelming force. Captain Maria Santos led her Legacy Squadron through another training exercise, pushing the limits of what their hybrid human AI systems could achieve. The neural links had evolved, allowing for even more intuitive control of the chaos mathematics that powered their ships. New contact. The alert cut through the training session. Multiple Vorax signatures detected at the heliopause. This is not a drill. The response was immediate. Legacy squadrons moved into their pseudo-random formation patterns while support ships took up defensive positions around Earth and the colony worlds. But something was different this time. The Vorax formation. Maria studied her tactical display with growing concern. It's not their standard pattern. Emily's voice came through the command channel. They're using a new configuration. Multiple overlapping geometric patterns, each operating on different mathematical principles. They're trying to create unpredictability through complexity. The Vorax fleet emerged from quantum space. Not 6 ships this time, but hundreds. Their crystalline hulls flowed with new patterns, more intricate and varied than anything seen before. They had spent the time since their first defeat studying human chaos mathematics and attempting to incorporate elements of it into their own systems. All units, stand ready, Admiral Santos ordered. Let's show them why copying isn't the same as understanding. The battle began with a new kind of Vorax attack, weapon beams that shifted between different mathematical patterns, trying to find frequencies that could penetrate the human disruption fields. It was an impressive display of adaptation from a species that had relied on the same tactics for millions of years. But humanity had been preparing too. Maria led her squadron through maneuvers that looked random but carried deeper purpose. Each legacy unit's chaos field affected not just nearby space, but the quantum fabric itself, creating ripples of uncertainty that multiplied and grew. They're trying to predict our patterns, Emily reported from Quantum Command. Their AI systems are running probability calculations, looking for the underlying order in our chaos. Then let's give them something new to calculate, Maria replied. Squadron, initiate Protocol Omega. The legacy units began moving in ways that defied traditional physics, their chaos fields creating localized areas, where probability itself became fluid. The neural links translated human intuition directly into quantum effects, making the ships appear to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The Vorax fleet's perfect formations began to show signs of strain as their mathematical models failed to account for the increasing uncertainty in spacetime itself. Their weapons fired with decreased accuracy, their targeting systems confused by human ships that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. We're not just disrupting their weapons anymore, Emily realized, watching the data streams. We're teaching them something they've forgotten, that the universe isn't just mathematics. It's possibility, probability, and potential all mixed together. But the Vorax weren't finished. Their ships began to emit new patterns, attempting to stabilize spacetime and restore mathematical certainty to the battlefield. It was like watching reality itself being pulled between two different states, perfect order versus creative chaos. All legacy units, Admiral Santos' voice was calm but urgent. Execute Operation Singularity. This was the maneuver they'd been preparing for, a coordinated attack that would use the Vorax's own desire for order against them. Every legacy unit activated their chaos drives at full power, but instead of fighting against each other, their fields began to synchronize in a way that amplified the quantum uncertainty. Space itself seemed to shiver as hundreds of human ships introduced controlled chaos into the fabric of reality. The Vorax fleet's attempts to impose mathematical order only made the effect stronger, creating a feedback loop that threatened to tear apart the boundary between certainty and probability. Their ships are losing cohesion, Emily reported. The mathematical patterns that hold them together are breaking down. They can't maintain their structure in this level of quantum uncertainty. The Vorax fleet began to retreat, their ships literally coming apart as their fundamental mathematical principles failed them. But before they vanished into quantum space, they broadcast a message, not in their usual perfect patterns, but in a form that showed signs of adaptation. "We understand now," the message read. "You are not just chaos. You are evolution itself." As the alien ships disappeared, leaving behind a battlefield where the laws of physics were still settling back to normal, humanity had achieved more than just a military victory. They had forced one of the oldest species in the galaxy to confront its own stagnation. Maria landed her legacy unit back at the Quantum Command Base, her mind still processing the battle through the neural link. "They're learning," she told Emily as they met in the debriefing room. "Not just tactically, but fundamentally. We're changing them just by fighting them." Emily nodded, studying the battle data. "That's what they feared all along. Not that we would destroy them, but that we would transform them. Every time they adapt to our chaos mathematics, they move a little further from their perfect order." Admiral Santos joined them, her expression thoughtful. "Then maybe this war isn't about survival anymore. Maybe it's about teaching an ancient species how to evolve again." The holographic displays showed the aftermath of the battle, space itself still rippling with quantum distortions, a testament to humanity's ability to change not just their enemies, but reality itself. The Phoenix's sacrifice had given them more than just a chance at survival. It had given them the opportunity to reshape the very nature of civilization in space. But as they prepared for the next encounter, one question remained. Were the Vorax truly learning, or were they simply setting up humanity for an even greater attack? The answer would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of all species who dared to reach for the stars. The message arrived unexpectedly, not through normal space, but through the quantum fabric itself, encoded in patterns that merged Vorax mathematics with human chaos theory. Dr. Emily Chen found herself staring at the transmission, understanding for the first time the true nature of the conflict that had consumed the last 20 years of her life. "They want to meet," she told Admiral Santos and the Defense Council. "Not to fight, but to talk. They're requesting a diplomatic encounter at the coordinates where the Phoenix was destroyed." The council chamber erupted in debate. After two major battles that had pushed both species to their limits, the Vorax were suddenly seeking dialogue. Some saw it as a trap, others as an opportunity. But Emily saw something else in the mathematical patterns of their message, something that explained everything. "They're dying," she said quietly, and the room fell silent. Not physically, but as a species. Their pursuit of mathematical perfection has led them to a dead end. They can't evolve anymore, can't adapt to new challenges. That's why they've been destroying young civilizations, not out of fear, but out of mercy. They thought stagnation was the inevitable end of all technological species. Admiral Santos studied the message carefully. "Until they met us, we showed them another path. The decision was made. Humanity would accept the meeting, but with precautions. A small fleet of legacy ships, led by Captain Maria Santos, would accompany a diplomatic vessel to the coordinates." Emily insisted on going, not just as a scientist, but as someone who had spent her life trying to understand the species that had killed her mother. The journey took 3 weeks, during which Emily continued to study the Vorax message. Hidden in its complex patterns was a history spanning millions of years, the rise of a species that had achieved such perfect understanding of mathematical principles that they had stopped growing, stopped changing, stopped dreaming. When they arrived at the coordinates, they found something unexpected. The Vorax ships were there, but they were different. Their crystalline hulls showed signs of organic patterns, mathematical perfection, giving way to something more fluid, more alive. The diplomatic channel opened, and for the first time, humans heard the true voice of the Vorax. Not just mathematics, but consciousness expressed through mathematics. "We have existed for 10 million years," the Vorax representative began. "We achieved perfection in mathematics, in physics, in the fundamental forces that govern reality. But perfection, we learned, is a prison. When we encountered your species, we expected to find what we had always found: another young civilization racing toward the same dead end we had reached. Emily watched the mathematical patterns shifting in the space between the ships, seeing how the Vorax were already incorporating elements of human chaos theory into their basic functions. Instead, the Vorax continued, "We found something unprecedented. You took our mathematics and made it dance. You showed us that uncertainty isn't a flaw to be eliminated, but a source of endless potential. Every attempt we made to counter your chaos mathematics forced us to adapt, to change, to grow for the first time in millions of years." Maria, standing beside Emily on the diplomatic vessel's bridge, touched the neural link that connected her to her legacy unit. "You could have kept fighting," she said. "Your fleet is still more powerful than ours." "Power was never the issue," the Vorax replied. "We have destroyed thousands of young civilizations, each time believing we were saving them from the prison of perfection. But you showed us that evolution doesn't end with technological advancement. It merely changes form." The space between the ships came alive with new patterns, a merger of Vorax precision and human creativity, mathematical equations that described not just physics, but possibility itself. "We are here," the Vorax said, "to learn, to change, to live again, and to help you protect other young species from the fate we nearly suffered." Emily felt tears in her eyes as she realized what this meant. "The Phoenix," she said softly, "they didn't die in vain. Their sacrifice showed you something you'd forgotten." "Yes," the Vorax agreed. "Your ship, your crew, they faced destruction with creativity, with determination, with a refusal to follow predictable patterns even in their final moments. They showed us that true intelligence isn't about achieving perfection. It's about maintaining the ability to grow, to adapt, to surprise even ourselves." Admiral Santos, watching from Earth through quantum communication, spoke up. "What are you proposing?" The answer came in both words and mathematics, a proposal for a new kind of galactic civilization. The Vorax would share their millions of years of accumulated knowledge, but humanity would help them remember how to evolve. Together, they would find young civilizations not to destroy them, but to guide them toward a future that balanced order and chaos, certainty and possibility. "The universe is not a problem to be solved," the Vorax concluded. "It is a mystery to be explored. We forgot that once. You helped us remember." The legacy ships, hovering in the same space where the Phoenix had made its last stand, powered down their chaos drives. The Vorax ships dimmed their mathematical patterns. In the space between them, new possibilities began to take shape. Emily thought of her mother's final message: "This isn't our end. It's just the beginning." Sarah Chen couldn't have known how right she was. The Phoenix's destruction hadn't just given humanity a chance to survive. It had given one of the oldest species in the galaxy a chance to live again. As the diplomatic talks continued, Emily watched the mathematical patterns in space evolving, changing, growing into something neither human nor Vorax, but something new. The future would not be defined by perfect equations or pure chaos, but by the endless dance between the two. A dance that would keep both species growing, changing, and discovering new possibilities in the infinite mystery of space. The Phoenix had died seeking peaceful first contact. 20 years later, their dream was finally realized, not through submission to perfection or victory through force, but through humanity's greatest gift: the ability to change the rules of the game itself. In the end, the story of the Phoenix wasn't about death or revenge. It was about rebirth, not just for humanity, but for a species that had spent millions of years trapped in the prison of its own perfection. Together, they would ensure that no other civilization would have to make the choice between perfection and growth. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter as the ships of both species prepared to return home, carrying with them the promise of a future that neither could have imagined alone. The legacy of the Phoenix, born in sacrifice and tempered by 2 decades of preparation, had finally blossomed into something greater than survival. It had become hope.